occupational therapist today. So today we're going to go over some questions just to help me get to know you a little bit better and so that we can decide on a treatment plan for you together. I will also be taking some notes if that's okay with you, and if you ever feel uncomfortable answering a question, just let me know and you do not have to answer it.
Okay.
So to start, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Jessie, and I'm going to be a third year at Swarthmore College, which is a liberal arts college.
Okay.
And at home, I live in the housing projects in New York with my family, who are all Puerto Rican.
And are you currently responsible for the care of any people?
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly responsible for anyone, but sometimes I feel like I am responsible for my family and their safety.
So you said you're a college student as well, so how did you come to decide what you wanted to study?
Well, I came into school wanting to become a doctor, but now my plans have changed a little bit.
Okay, and what do your studies involve now?
Well, school's pretty rough, but in high school, I felt like it didn't really prepare me for college, and I just feel like we didn't have enough supplies, like math books and chemistry supplies, and I was forced to drop out of one of my classes during my freshman year as well. I just feel like I'm adjusting now though, and my professors who are willing to help me in my classes have definitely helped me be a little bit better.
That's awesome. So how would you describe yourself as a student now?
Well, I feel like I'm really determined in my studies, and I know that I'll succeed if I work really hard.
And you said you kind of feel responsible for taking care of your family. How would you describe what kind of caretaker you are?
Well, I'm very protective over my family. For example, when I was 17 years old, I almost got a gun because I felt like I needed to ensure my family's safety in some sort of way.
Okay. And moving on to a new topic, have you worked in the past?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, and how did you come to have this job?
During my freshman year, when I was about 14 years old, I worked at a pharmacy in Manhattan as an expert gift wrapper and also as a store clerk in the cosmetics department. My friends and I just wanted to be able to afford the new shoes that were out, like the Air Jordan sneakers, you know, the Timberland boots and Nike Classics.
Wow, that's awesome. So what kind of worker would you say you are?
I feel like I'm a hard worker. I make sure that I'm working diligently and that I'm bringing enough money in for my family.
Oh yeah. How much of your time and energy did your work take?
It took a lot of time. I would say I would often work overtime, but it gave me the opportunity to purchase things like clothes for myself because my parents could never afford them for me.
So what would you say is the main thing you got out of working?
I felt like there was no greater feeling than being able to contribute to my parents' financial needs. I just felt so independent and confident.
And why did you end up stop working?
Well, I was in high school and it was just an after-school job. I felt like I didn't need to stick to that forever.
So in the past, before college, how would you describe yourself as a student?
I think I excelled in school because I really believed in my role as a student. So I felt my role was to complete my homework and tidy up the house before my parents returned home from work.
Was school difficult for you at times?
Yeah, sometimes it was difficult. Like I said, the school environment was just incapable of assisting students' needs. And I just felt like there could have been a more effective education. Like sometimes the teachers would come in so late just to take attendance and then leave. And there weren't enough supplies. And I just remember like there were so many metal detectors and the security guards just treated us like gangbangers and drug dealers.
And how far did you go in school?
Well, I graduated high school and then I am in college now, so I would say pretty far.
Oh, okay, wow. And in addition to your studies, is there anything else that takes up a lot of your time and energy?
Well, I like to hang out with my friends. I met them, I believe, during my sophomore year of college, and we're all from the same type of neighborhood, so we have some things in common.
Wow, cool. Do you live in an apartment, dorm?
I live in the dorms, but back at home, I'll live in an apartment with my family.
Who else do you live with at home?
Well, there's my mom and my dad, and then sometimes my brother comes when he comes home from college.
And what kind of responsibilities do you have to keep up your home apartment?
Well, at home, I to tidy up the apartment before my parents come home from work, and I do the same at my dorm.
Wow, that's awesome. So in terms of other things that you participate in, do you actively participate in any other organizations like a church or a temple?
Yeah, I go to church. I'm Catholic, and I just pray sometimes.
So can you elaborate on that? Like, what is your reason for doing that?
Well, I pray because I feel like it's really important to have faith. I know that I'll succeed since God is with me, so I just try to pray.
Wow, that's awesome.
So now I just want to ask you, about your daily routine and what you typically do during the day. So can you describe a typical day during the week for me?
So I think since I'm a college student, a typical day looks like going to classes, coming home and studying, and sometimes I can meet up with my friends and we can study together.
So would you say that the weekend is any different compared to the weekdays?
I feel like it's more or less the same, just without classes. I have to study extra hard to keep up with my classmates, so predominantly the main thing I do on the weekends is study. And some of the things I never really learned in high school, but luckily I have professors who can help me out, and they motivate me to keep working.
Yeah, I see studying can take up a lot of your time. So are you satisfied with this routine?
Yeah, I guess so. At first I really hated my time at college, but since I found a solid group of friends, I actually feel like I belong here at this school.
So what do you like about it then?
Well, I'd say I really like learning the new material. I've always loved learning, and so I like the challenge aspect where I can learn and really feel like I am gaining something.
So let's say if you're having a really good day or a really bad day, what would that day be like?
I guess a good day would look like getting a good grade on a test that I studied really hard for, then eating some rice and beans with my friends, and then getting a chance to talk to my mom and dad on the phone and just check in with them, see if they're doing okay, and also let them know that I'm okay,
Yeah, that sounds like a really good day. So what would you say are the most important things in your routine then?
I guess I don't do this enough, but an important thing in my routine is taking time to call my parents. I just want to make sure that they're not worrying too much about me.
So do you think that your routine allows you to get the things done that you think are most important for you?
Well, sometimes. I mean, my classes take up most of my time. If I'm not in class, I'm studying, and I do want to make sure I have time to see my friends, but yeah, I just do my best to see them because I really don't know what I would do without them.
Yeah, those are important things. So what do you think are the important things that you think you're not able to do then?
Well, I said that I call my parents, but I think it'd be nice to take some time to go home and actually see them in person, but I'm not able to do that as much as I'd like because I don't have a car.
So do you think that your daily routine was ever different from before now?
Well, I guess it was different when I was in high school because I'm in college now, and that's just because I lived at home. Now I'm responsible to do everything on my own. Sometimes it gets kind of tiring.
So how can you elaborate more on that? So how is your routine different from when you were in high school?
Well, when I was in high school, I lived with my parents, and they did all the cooking. And now that I'm in college, I can have to cook on my own, and I'm not that good at it yet, but I get by, I guess. Another thing that is different than when I was in high school is that I have control over what I do, which I kind of like actually. When I was little, my mom used to control everything that I did, and so now it's nice because when I want to hang out and see my friends, I can do it when I want to do it.
So do you have any hobbies or projects that were part of this routine in the past?
Hobbies, well, I don't really have time for those anymore, but in the past, one thing I used to enjoy doing was being a part of choir. Yes.
So what would you say is the most important thing to keep the same about your routine?
The thing I want to keep the same, I guess, is to make sure I always have enough time to study. Right now, school is the most important thing in my life. I have to do well. I will succeed, and I'm determined to do that, to prove to myself and to my family that I can do it. And so even if that means I have to pull an all-nighter or that I stay in my room all day and I miss out on things that are going on with my friends, I just do it anyways because I just want to make sure I have enough time to study.
So you really have that determination to succeed in school. So do you think that there's something that you would like to change most about your routine then?
No, not really.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so now I just want to learn a little bit more about you and your environment. So I was hoping that you could tell me a little bit about where you live.
Right now, I'm living at the dorms at my college. I never lived away from my family before this, so the dorms are nice and comfortable. There's a bunch of us on one floor, but we keep it pretty clean.
Okay, and I understand that you live in Brooklyn when you're back at home.
Yeah, so back at home, it's another story. Like when I look back at the streets that I grew up in on Brooklyn, I just think of the violence and drugs that have taken over so many of my friends' lives. And it's still home though, and it's filled with great memories. But sadly, there's just a lot of bad things going on.
So is your home back in your apartment with your family and your dorm comfortable?
I think so. The entire dorm room is bigger than my own bedroom back at home, so I appreciate the space. But I think I still feel more comfortable living with my family, just having them there.
I see. Well, do you feel like you have enough privacy?
Well, back at home, I used to have to share the room and sleep on the floor sometimes with my parents, so I feel like I'm a little used to someone always being in the room with me. But I think it'd be nice to just enjoy some alone time for studying or relaxing.
Yeah, so I understand that you're saying your home can be a little tight sometimes. Do you feel that you can get around in your home, in your apartment or your dorm well?
I think so. There's enough space for me to get around. It's just 2 beds and a desk, but we keep it pretty clean in there.
Do you have the things there that you need in order to do what you want? Like, are you ever bored there?
No, never bored really, because I always have homework or studying to do for my classes. It gets really stressful.
And do you like your surroundings?
Not my first year. I was surrounded by a lot of people that I felt bullied by. I also couldn't relate to any of them too. They just didn't understand, me or my background of like who I am and where I come from. So yeah.
Well, back at school, what do you have to do to keep up your dorm?
I normally just tidy things up around my dorm room at the end of the week, and then I do lunch on Tuesdays because I have a short day on that specific day.
Okay. Well, do you like doing all of this?
Sometimes it's hard to keep things organized, but because of my school schedule. But I think having a clean room actually kind of helps me relieve some stress.
And you're able to do this all right?
Yeah, I don't have any problems really, but sometimes I wish my roommate would help out a little bit more.
Oh, so you have a roommate. Do you only have one or more than that?
No, I only live with one roommate at my dorm, but when I'm out of school again, I just live with my parents back at home.
And how do you get along with your roommate?
We used to get along fine in our first semester, but things just started to change between us. She started kind of making fun of me a lot. I remember she would call me my little fugitive, and her and my hallmates just kept making hurtful jokes like that about me. And I just never understood why. Like they didn't even care to understand who I am.
And when you were with this roommate that you felt that didn't understand you, what kind of things did you do together?
Well, actually, we don't really talk too much. We don't really talk to each other much at all. Only a few short exchanges here and there. I just think it's better for me to kind of keep my distance and remove myself from that situation, because all those negative things that she used to say to me kind of really affected me. It used to just make me feel even more isolated or alone at school.
Well, I'm sorry that you felt that way. How would you describe things where you live at home?
My parents are really supportive and loving people. Whenever I feel down, I always keep their advice in mind to, just keep pushing forward and working hard in school, just to keep me off the streets and onto a better path for myself. They love me when times are good, and I feel like they just love me even harder when times are tough.
Well, it seems like your parents are really supportive. Is there anyone at home or in your family who makes life stressful or more difficult for you?
No, I get along really well with my parents and my brother. But as I was growing up, I remember my mom just became really strict with me though, like when it came to going out or hanging out with friends. And that just really bummed me out. But I understand that she was just looking out for me.
Yeah, and if you needed help with something, can you expect anyone in your family to give you a hand?
Yeah, definitely my family for some things. But they can't really be there for me at school, and they don't know much about school anyways, so I can't get help from them at that time. So I also can't get help from my roommate because again, I just don't really interact with her that much anymore.
And can you give me an example of this with your roommate?
Let's see. Well, this used to happen all the time with my roommate. When I would ask her to, help me with the dishes or just taking out the trash, she would just sometimes shut me down and, go out with her friends instead. So honestly, I just start to feel like I was being a maid at one point.
And when you felt upset or depressed, could you expect your family or someone else to give you support?
Yeah, my parents really help me, when I'm feeling down. And again, they're just my motivation to keep going. Oh, and also my best friend Frankie really understands me too, so I always go to her to vent. My friends at school, the ones I met my second year, are really supportive. We just get each other and we stick by each other. We share some of the same experiences growing up back in Brooklyn, and also experiences we have now at school.
Your friends are great. Can you give me an example of your friends being supportive?
Yeah, so we all experience bullying in some way at school. So just the feeling of being isolated or even lost, we weren't really familiar with the language or just the culture over here. So it's great that I found people that I can relate to, and we're always there to support each other.
Well, I'm glad that you found such great friends. Now, could you tell me about the place where you work or go to school now?
Yeah, so my school now is totally different from the ones that I went to when I was younger. It's so much bigger and nicer. They have a lot more resources available than all of my past schools combined. So my high school, it felt like a prison, and they just treated us as if all we could ever be were drug dealers and gangbangers. But I just wish my current school would just have more resources to help first generation students.
And is your school now a well-suited place for you to get those studies done?
In my first semester, I was completely lost. I didn't know how to use any of the lab equipment, for example, for my chemistry class, because I was never exposed to that kind of stuff before my high school, because they didn't even have those things. So my teachers at college didn't really understand and would just tell me to go teach myself. But now I have teachers and other classmates who understand my situation and are willing to help me out.
Nice. And at school, are you able to get around okay?
Yeah, navigating schoolwork and assignments, I've had a lot of help from my friends and teachers that I'm thankful for. But physically around school, there's a lot of transportation options too, like buses to get around campus and to go to other stores.
And what are the main things that you do at school?
So at school, let's see. I typically go to my lectures, discussions, club meetings, and I hang out with my friends too around campus, like to get lunch when we can.
And do you have the things there that you need in order to do what you want?
Yeah, the library resources are really helpful. There's a bunch of study places around campus I can go to. Some of my teachers provide a lot of resources and their own personal notes to help us out.
Well, that sounds awesome. It sounds like you have a supportive environment filled with a bunch of resources. Are you ever stressed out there at school?
Yeah, homework and studying can get really overwhelming, so I get stressed out about that. Before, I was stressed so much more in my first year though. I used to just feel so lost and isolated, and I just felt like I had no direction. But I think it's getting better, and I'm kind of finding myself again.
Yeah, and do you like your school surroundings?
I'm getting pretty comfortable there, but I still feel like I need help understanding the school system.
Well, who are the people that you interact with most as a student?
Mostly my friends and probably the teachers that I like.
And what about the other students and the other teachers? Do you get along with them?
It's hard for me to talk to other classmates and connecting with them. I just feel different from them, in the way that I think or even in the way that I talk. But I want to work on connecting with other classmates because we have group assignments, and I feel like I just want to make more friends too. I also have trouble interacting with some teachers. Like, I don't know if I'm saying something wrong because sometimes it just feels like they don't want to help me.
Well, it sounds like you devote a lot of your time to your studies, students, and teachers. What are the main things you do to relax?
I just like to take some alone time and just relax in bed sometimes, listening to music or watching something. And And then I typically hang out with my friends to just relieve some stress or just have fun.
Yeah, and where do you go for that?
Let's see, we go to the movies, we go bowling, and sometimes we hang out at someone's place to cook like Puerto Rican food and just talk.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Is it a good place to be?
Yeah, I like the places we go out to. We're doing activities that aren't related to school at all, so that's nice. It also feels nice to be back with my family back home, sometimes just to relax.
Yeah, and do you like the atmosphere you're surrounded by as well?
Yeah, at home, like I don't really go out. I just typically stay inside. Again, a lot of the people I used to know just are on different paths now, so I just don't really hang out with them anymore. And I just enjoy the atmosphere inside my house and spending time with my parents or my brother when he's back home from college.
So do you really have the places you want for relaxation?
I think so. When I don't feel like staying in my dorm room, I'm really thankful that I have those friends to hang out with and go to different places.
All right, so tell me a little bit more about your friends. Who are the people you relax with the most?
So yeah, there's actually a big group of us. I think there's like 10 of us who like to hang out and hang out at school together, study together, and we also do things outside of school when we can. But not all of us can make it every time. It's a big group, but most of the time, there's always a few of us, which is nice.
Oh, that's nice. So tell me about something you did recently that would show me that kind of atmosphere where you're able to relax.
Yeah, last weekend actually, we had a movie night at my friend's house, and we cooked our favorite food, and we had a bunch of snacks. It was really fun, and there was a lot of laughs, especially since we watched a scary movie, so that was fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, Jessie, so if I understand correctly, you've been studying in college and school is really important to you and has been since you were a child. I understand that career is also really important to you. And so now I just want to take some time to ask you some questions about your values, interests, and things that motivate you behind those choices. So the first question I have is there anything that routinely interferes with what you want to do?
Well, school is my priority, so I understand that sometimes I have to sacrifice going out and doing things I want to do, like hanging out with friends, but this is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Sometimes I have to work during the week, and sometimes I pick up extra shifts during the week to help my family financially and to help with paying for college. And this takes time away from studying and focusing on school.
Okay. Have you ever set a goal or plan for the future before?
Of course. So, for example, getting to college was one of my goals.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel like you've been in following through with that goal?
I think so far I'm doing a good job with following through.
Is there another example you can give of a time that you had set a goal and you followed through with it?
Well, my goal growing up was always have a better future, and this meant getting an education for myself, and this didn't come easy. I remember when I was in elementary school, I would wear mittens during the cold months all the time so that I could get my multiplication tables done. And now, several years later, here I am at one of the best liberal arts colleges in the country.
Wow, I just want to say congratulations. That's definitely a testament to how hard you worked. And so when you do run into these obstacles and difficulties, how would you say you handle them?
Well, when times get tough, I have to remind myself of my values. Growing up, I encountered a lot of difficult situations, but it was these life experiences that taught me to value integrity, respect, and honor in any decision I make. And reminding myself of these values and reminding myself of all the family and friends I have supporting me and believing in me really keeps me going. Sometimes it just gets too hard and my temper gets the best of me, or I just choose to remove myself from the situation entirely and avoid having a confrontation.
So can you give me a specific example of a time when your temper is risen, and how did you handle that?
So when I first started college, my roommate called me my little fugitive, like I told you earlier, and this really rubbed me the wrong way. So instead of letting my temper get the best of me, I usually stay quiet or just walk out of the room like I did back then.
So I remember you saying that this is something that happened your freshman year of college. Can you think of something that's a big challenge for you right now?
My biggest challenge right now is still adjusting to college in general and making sure I succeed. I am doing better in school, but in addition to my troubles interacting with people at school, my other struggle is time management. I feel really overwhelmed at times, and there are just too many things to do on my plate, and it's really hard for me to keep track of everything.
So Can you think of some steps that you could be doing now to help you adjust to school?
Well, so far, I've come to realize that there are people here, including my peers and professors, that really want me to succeed. So just knowing that I can reach out to them if I need any extra help or just to vent my frustrations really does help. And I knew coming into college that it wouldn't be easy. So I'm just trying to give it some time and see how things play out.
Wow, those are all great ideas and great suggestions. So is there anything that you've already begun doing to help you start adjusting to school?
Just this semester, I was having a lot of difficulty with one of my writing classes, so I reached out to a professor and he was able to help me with my critical thinking skills, and I ended up getting a good grade on one of my writing assignments.
That's awesome. Good job.
So yeah, I can see that you've definitely come a long way from your past up until now, and here you are at a great college, and I can see that you have a lot of determination to succeed. So I would just like to ask you about what you think are really important or impactful events that have happened in your life, just to understand your life story a little bit more and also your hopes for the future. So what would you say were events or experiences that have most shaped or changed your life?
Well, I think one of the earliest things I can remember is, since I was born in Puerto Rico, moving from Puerto Rico we moved to New York City, and I just remember a really vivid memory was the stars in Puerto Rico were way more beautiful than when I moved to New York City.
That sounds really nice. So what do you remember the most about when you lived in Brooklyn, and how is that different from Puerto Rico?
Well, a vivid memory I remember when I moved to Brooklyn was when I was 16 years old. It was a Saturday morning and I went to go buy my mom a present for her birthday, and these female gang members came out of nowhere and they just started attacking me, and I could just still remember my glasses crashing against the floor, and they were just beating me, and the only thing I could remember was my brother's advice, which was never stop swinging. And so I just fought back as hard as I could, and when the cops finally came, they couldn't even tell who the victim was because I was just really just trying my best to not let them hit me. And so both of my attackers walked away with injuries, but I didn't press any charges. And it was after that I realized that it was only a matter of time before other gang members would come to confront me to seek revenge, because gang violence never ends.
Wow, that sounds like a really scary time for you, but I'm glad that you got out of that situation safely. Can you recall any other events that were pivotal for you?
Yeah, well, the next year, the following year, when I was 17, it was the day before Mother's Day, and I came home not expecting anything, and our house had been burglarized, and there was glass everywhere, and it was a mess. And the gift, I got my mom a little necklace, and that was gone. Someone had stolen that. And later on we found out that attack was just a warning because some local gang members were out to get my brother. And that was when I no longer felt safe in my own home anymore. And it was also the first time that I ever considered buying a gun because I wanted to be able to, protect my family. But in the end, I just couldn't bring myself to buy the gun because I came to this realization that I couldn't just fight fire with fire.
Well, that's great that you have that insight. That was definitely a good decision that you made. Do you have anything else that you want to share?
Well, one other thing that I remember that's a really vivid memory for me was my sophomore year of high school. I joined a choir with a couple of my friends, specifically one of my friends, his name was Anthony, and he was different from all my other friends because he chose not to get involved in things that could jeopardize his life, whereas some of my other friends were, getting involved into things that were a little dangerous for them. But in that year, Anthony and I and a couple of our other friends got invited to audition for the Brooklyn Academy of Arts program for choir, and we actually made it in. And I just remember those practices being really long and tiring, and it was really rough, but in the end it was a small price to pay for making beautiful music, and we were just really proud to see all that hard work we had put in pay off. But one morning I got up an unexpected call that Anthony had taken his life. And yeah, that afternoon I just decided to turn in my choir uniform, and yeah, choir just wasn't the same after that, and I couldn't bear the thought of just having Anthony's empty seat during rehearsals.
I'm really sorry to hear about your friend Anthony. You've really been through a lot back home in Brooklyn. Oh my god. But on a different note, if you think about your life, what do you consider the time when you felt most that you're doing your best?
Oh, well, I think a time when I was doing really well my favorite memory was summer vacations when I was a kid. When school was out and all my friends from the neighborhood and I would play hide and seek, steal the bacon, kick the can, and we just used to live outside, and with my neighborhood friends, even my cousins and brothers, we would just go on new adventures every day.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Childhood memories are definitely very important to have for yourself. So what do you consider the worst period in your life and why?
Well, that period of life when I was for summer vacation was really fun, but it abruptly changed around the time I turned like maybe 12 or something. My mom randomly stopped letting me go outside and hang out with my friends. She said something about that I was an una muchacha decente and that it was dangerous for me to be outside. But that made no sense to me because I feel like all girls are decent at that time, and so what made me different? And I really resented her because at that time it made me lose a lot of my friends because I was stuck at home and I was really bored.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that with your mom. So is there anything else that you can tell me that happened at school or at work where you felt especially unsuccessful?
Well, one thing that I really remember was in college, my freshman year, I learned that my best wasn't good enough, and even when I tried my hardest, I couldn't even get better than a D in chemistry, and this whole time I'd wanted to be a doctor, and at that point I just realized that maybe being a doctor wasn't the career for me.
Well, if you can make your future turn out as you wanted, what would you be doing?
It's a good question. I guess I see myself graduating from college in a couple of years and just proving to everyone who thought that I couldn't do it that I could, and maybe seeing myself get a credential and becoming a teacher or working in education. There was this one time I took an education class and I learned about how kids who came from the inner city who were just like me and attended public schools that lacked resources, there something could be done, and I became really passionate about helping those who are in similar situations who came from the similar backgrounds as me be able to have the quality education that they deserve and that they need to do well, and that they'd be better prepared for college like I wasn't. And I just want to do whatever I can to change the system that tried to tell me that I could not be anything better than a criminal. And I just want students who are in my shoes to know that, like me, they can also make it and they can also get into college and be successful if they work hard and they make smart decisions that keep them out of trouble. So, yeah.
Wow, those are some really, really great goals that you have. And I'm here, of course, to help you reach those goals. And so maybe next week we can work on some things like time and stress management, and as well as to, work on those interactions with your students and with your classmates, and your teachers. So how about we work on a plan next session to target and achieve those goals. So I'll see you back next week at the same place and the same time.
That sounds great. Thank you.
No problem.